Yo, what is up guys? It is me, LJP Studios, back with another video, and today we're doing something of a similar concept, if you will, as what we did in yesterday's video, and this is another career mode recommendation, and today it is with, as you can tell, the club from Denmark called FC Nordsjælland. Nordsjælland? I don't actually know how to pronounce it, so don't stand by that pronunciation, but yeah, the team in Denmark, and I will explain why in a brief moment, as I will just quickly run you through the team. They do have some good talents from mainly mainly like Denmark, and there are also from other countries as well, which I will be exploring in a moment. Um, but yeah, what I find fascinating about this team is, funnily enough, they actually have an academy in Africa called the Right to Dream Academy, and that is getting players at the club like Issa, Isaka Seidu. You've got Stephen Akua. You also have Arafat Muhammad, Caleb Yarenki, Diallo Sanusi, Mario Dorgeles, Prince Amoako Jr., and Levi Nene, who actually are showing great potential, so looks pretty decent. Now, if you don't know, if you've never heard of the Right to Dream Academy before, I will briefly explain that. It's actually an academy that focuses on African football, and FC Nordsjælland have actually produced many talents that you may have not known about before. Well, you may have not realised that they've played for them, like Ibrahim Osman of, I believe, Brighton. They have Ernest Nuama, who plays for Lyon, I believe. Sulemana of Southampton. Ibrahim Sadiq, I don't know which team he plays for, but I know he did play for AZ Alkmaar, and notoriously, Mohamed Kudus, who just signed for the team that I support in real life, Tottenham. Now, you may be wondering why I've listed all those players, and yes, they all play for FC Nordsjælland, but they also represent Ghana on the national team scale. And the reason I'm telling you this is that is one of the nations that I would recommend you setting up a scouting network. They've got some others which I will explore in a moment, and also further explain what like youth, well, countries you should send your youth scouts or whatever you want to call them to. But yeah, the reason they're in Ghana is because that is one of the main places they set up the academy. Now, they do actually have the academy in some other countries, like they have one in Egypt, which I believe they set up in 2023. I'm not too sure about that fact, so yeah, that could be two potential countries, but I would definitely lead towards Ghana if you're going, well, depending on how many you're going to use. But yeah, I would definitely recommend Ghana to be one of those nations that you do explore, because not many people realise the amount of talent they've produced from Ghana, and as I've said, the most famous being Mohamed Kudus. So that could be one that you know that you a country that you send it to, and they from um, from Ghana, they tend to get wingers. So that's what I would recommend if you do send it to Ghana, is make sure you get wingers, because what do these players have in common? Ibrahim Osman, Suleimana, Nuama, Mohamed Kudus, Sadiq. What do they all have in common? They're all players on the wing. So that is what I would recommend you do if you do send it to Ghana, is make sure you select wingers, because that is what they aim for. And maybe, you know, one day you could go and get yourself the next Mohamed Kudus to the club. But what I would recommend, until you've become like a decently good club, similarly to the recommendation I did yesterday with Clermont Foot about selling players to bigger teams, that's what they tend to do. They tend to really grow the young players like Mohamed Kudus, and then they sell them on for a bigger fee. So what I would recommend you doing is growing those players out to a good overall, not just like the low 60s. No, not low 60s, not the high 60s. Maybe in the early to mid 70s, and then sell them on for a decent fee. Now I know many of you that want to just quickly get to the top, may not like the sound of that, but if you want it to be realistic, that is the best method, because that's what Nordsjælland do. They scout these young African players that may not have had an opportunity at another club elsewhere, and then they scout them, and then they develop them from the Right to Dream Academy into the Nordsjælland Academy, and then what they do after that is sell them on. Now, not all the time is it directly to, not directly all the time is it to like a bigger club. Like Kudus didn't go straight from Nordsjælland to Tottenham or West Ham. He did go on a bit of a detour. Well, he went to Ajax first, I believe. Then you do have some others that go straight to big teams. Like Osman went straight to Brighton. I can't honestly remember where players like Sulemana went to after Nordsjælland, because I know Sulemana played for Southampton, but I don't know if he went straight from Nordsjælland to Southampton. But I know players like Nuam, who currently play at struggling Lyon, who I might cover in a future video like this. He went to low league Belgium side RWD Molenbeek, which I actually did a recommendation about that in FC24. I did quite enjoy that, and I would have recommended it if they were in this game, because they do have they did have interesting players in FC24 with the likes of Rain Adelaide, formerly of the Arsenal Academy, and they did have Nuama on loan, so that would have been interesting, but unfortunately for them, they did get relegated, so they are not in the game. With dire moments of this Youth Academy match, I will quickly speak to you about some of the other players to have come through the Nordsjælland Academy. If you give me a second. Now, I know a big part of that is was the Ghana. Well, how is it Ghanaian? Ghanaian. They do also have players else. Well, they have also got players from elsewhere. So, if I believe Ivory Coast. Yeah, Ivory Coast. They've got some players like Adingra through the academy, but then also players from Burkina Faso like Adamo Nagalo with PSV. So realistically, I would recommend probably Guinea, Burkina Faso, Mali, Ivory Coast, Ghana, and then also Egypt, Egypt, because they have also recently set up an academy in there. But what I would also do is make sure that you don't have to, but you can also put your academies in Danish countries, obviously, no, not Danish, Scandinavian countries like Denmark, Finland, and Sweden, because they've got plenty of Danish talent. Damsgaard of Brentford, Harder of Sporting, that I just signed, well, I did sign in my Middlesbrough career mode, Scheldrup of Benfica, Mateus Jensen of Brentford, Skovolsen of Wolfsburg, and Victor Nelson of um, Victor Nelson of Galatasaray. And they've also had some Swedish talent like Svensson, the guy that was on loan that we got on loan in the Middlesbrough career mode from what club? Dortmund. And they've also had some Finland's talents like Oliver Antman of Go Ahead Eagles. So realistically, um, one of one of Denmark, Finland, and Sweden, and then maybe two. Well, and then I do. So yeah, one of the Scandinavian countries I mentioned, Ghana, and then one of Egypt, Burkina Faso, Ivory Coast, Nigeria, maybe Mali, Guinea. One of those, and that should be fine. And you may not want to just focus solely on the players from the youth academy, so you can actually buy players. And like, we've already got some decent, well, not decent, but examples. Like, I don't think he'd be a good addition, but Godfrey Bittok, Stephen, or Mikel Akoto, Anthony Uzodima. You've got Ibrahim Olawoyin, who actually would be a good addition. Haki Osman, Stephen O'Day, and Emmanuel Yaboa, who you won't actually be able to sign. An easy way to do this is if you go to nationality/region. The first one I would look for is Ghana. So if you go Ghana, I don't actually know if there's. Yeah, you probably should just like do this like position by position. So if you want a keeper, Joseph Anang would be a good option, or you could go for the free Richard Ofori or Lawrence Ati Ziggy. So there are a few Ghanaian options. Few defending options: Kelvin Abrifa, Abubakar, Adams Nuhu Ajay, Ajeti, Adu, Amati, Ambrosius, Atama, Raman Baba, Ujiku, Mensa Lamptey, Moomin. You get the idea. Is what I'm trying to say. They do have lots and lots of good options there, and then you could also maybe go for Ivory Coast, for example, and look through the players that they have, and maybe you could find someone that you quite like. You may think that Ange Ahuso would be a good addition to the defence. Yeah, I would strongly recommend that you focus more on the youth academy than you do signings, but you can. It's not like restrictive, I guess, but yeah, make sure that you do prioritise that youth academy so you do have a good setup. And as you can see here, the first position I would prioritise is getting a new left back to replace Lati Naki. I believe that's how you pronounce it. So I'd literally simply go on here, go to Ghana, and then where is Ghana? I'd go to Ghana, and then I'd go left back, and then I might go for Rahman Barber, or I might go for Jeffrey Schlupp. I'd go for one of these, but if you can't afford, then you can always just go for a right back. You might want a briefer, or you might want Yeardom, or you might want Lamptey. He might be out of your budget. But you get the idea. Um, or if you don't want to sign anyone from there, let's go to Ivory Coast right backs. See if they have anyone. You might want to go for Kofi Kue or Zie Ouattara. That's a perfect example. Or Luck Zogby. You might want to get him on loan. Or if you don't want to put a right back at left back and you want to look at left back, maybe Ismail Chester Diallo might be the one for you. Or Suleiman Doumbia might take a greater preference for you. You know, the options really are limitless. And yeah, once you've got a left back, maybe focus, well not focus, but maybe a new midfielder or a new winger. The options really, it's a weak team, you know. There's lots of potential options for you lot, and I actually think this would be a really fun save. So yeah, I would strongly recommend doing that. So to quickly recap before I end the video, make sure that you send a youth academy to one of the Scandinavian countries. It's not really like, there's not really a set one that you have to go for. But if I were to give my recommendation, I would give it to Denmark, obviously, because it's a team based in Denmark. So in my head, it kind of makes sense to do it in Denmark. And then because it's the most prolific one, I would also to Ghana, and then I'd do the last one to maybe Egypt, Guinea, Mali, Ivory Coast, Burkina Faso, one of those. Ivory Coast, I don't believe I mentioned that. And then once you've set that up, then if you can afford, make some signings, and I would prioritise the left back. And when you send the Ghana scout out, make sure you prioritise looking for a winger, because that is typically what they get from Ghana. And yeah, make sure if you get a permanent offer from a big club, make sure you also accept that, and comment down below if you try this, because I am actually interested, and I think off camera I might actually start a new, like, one of these. I think I'm actually going to do a Nordsjælland Academy, because now I've spoken about it and I've looked at it, this actually does look like a really fun save. So yeah, I might do it. And they do have some good current, like, young players as well. So if we go to the team, as you may have seen when I showed you earlier, whilst they do have some older players like Hansen and Ankerson and Markson and Wilkheim, they do have a very young side. They've got a Jelly, Nene that you saw had shown great potential, Hogsberg. So yeah, they do have a fair share of good players. Demer, Dorgeles, Asconi, the captain. They do have good young players. So yeah, so far, if I had to choose my favourite that I've recommended, this would be my favourite, and I genuinely am going to start it soon. But that's been it for today's episode. I do have a few more of these ideas, or concepts of these ideas. I won't spoil them, but there are definitely some fascinating and unique ones. So make sure you stay tuned for that. Like if you have enjoyed, subscribe if you're new, or if you haven't already. Comment down below what you want to see in the future, whether it's another thing like this, if it's another career mode video, another thing on EAFC, or just a completely new game altogether. And I'll see you for another video very soon. Goodbye.